Happy Monday, YouTube. Happy Monday, everyone. And welcome to a bumper Euro election special of London After Midnight. And we have two brand new guests this week. So, Xcenu, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us something about yourself?
Hi, my name is Xcenu. I joined YouTube like a year ago when I lived in Indonesia. I'm pretty much a human rights nerd.
Ah, that's a good term. Human rights nerd. I like that.
Thanks.
And you never call yourself an SJW or a keyboard warrior?
No, the nicknames I use is Xenu or Xibeskov, and I don't use titles very much.
Okay. And you're in Sweden, correct?
Yep.
Okie dokie. And Quenrich, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us something about yourself?
Hello, I'm a Finnish general nerd and geek, mostly philosophy and technique and more precisely theoretical philosophy and sciences are my interests.
And you're both in college, aren't you, at the moment?
University for Applied Sciences.
Sorry, I used college the way that Americans say college. Yes, yes. And Xcenu, I think you're a postgrad, aren't you?
I'm writing on a master thesis in human rights studies.
All right.
And Gunderson returning for, I don't know, is it the third time or fourth time? But a returning guest. You've only been on once before?
Yeah, with Bill, remember? I don't think I've been on since then.
I do apologise. You have only been on once before. I stand corrected. Well, in merry old Yorkshire, and what's the standard greeting in Yorkshire?
Hey up.
Oh, okay. Well, hey up, Gunderson, and Fratis.
Hey everyone, still your classical white male privileged guy. I shall bring my privilege to this conversation.
White, straight, cis male.
You forgot this, yes, it is true.
You're not the only white, straight, cisgendered male.
Yes, but I'm the only one with true privilege.
And you're German, so it's even worse.
Correct.
And neurotypical.
Yeah, and neurotypical.
And no diagnosed mental illnesses.
Oh God, I am very...
I think he's the most privileged person in this call.
What a cunt. So, and actually, I'll tell you what, especially true, given that apparently the theme tune or anthem or whatever for Europe is Beethoven's Ninth. Did they not consider compositions by any other nation?
No, I mean, we all know that Germany de facto rules the European Union.
Isn't he Austrian?
No, Beethoven's German.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Beethoven is very much German. But we all know that Europe is just a shill for German politics.
Yeah.
It is true.
Well, without further ado then, today's topic is this Danish cartoon, Vote Man, which I believe was actually pulled following some controversy. It does basically open with an orgy, and then go into violence, and yeah, it's all meant to be tongue-in-cheek, and no, at the end it says, no hipsters were harmed in the making of this film. And ultimately my take is that advertising should A, be something that you notice, and B, be something that you remember. Maybe you don't show this to your kids, but basically, we all noticed it, we all heard about it, having seen it, we will remember it. And that's pretty much my only opinion. Xcenu, I think you've only just watched it, haven't you? But you'd heard about it before. Your opinion on the cartoon Vote Man?
Well, I read about it earlier today or the other day and didn't bother to check it out because it didn't seem interesting. But I followed your link now just 10 minutes ago. And I really think this cartoon is a mistake to make something like that. I mean, it annoys me that people get riled up about the sexuality and such, but the message is pretty much a fascist, do as we tell you or else. in this case we order you to vote and we will hurt you unless you vote. And that is a very unfortunate message to send. And I sure they intended to be tongue-in-cheek or whatever, but I personally don't appreciate that particular sense of humor, especially from an official source.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know much about Danish humour. I did date a Danish girl for a while, a few years ago. But the only Danish joke I know is an Eskimo walks by a bar. And apparently they think that that Eskimos are all drunkards. So the only Danish joke I know is racist, or at least xenophobic. The thing about voting, of course, is they do have compulsory voting in some places. I believe Australia even has. And I don't like the idea of being arrested for not voting, I must say. I don't like
It's not, they don't arrest you, they just fine you, I think.
Oh, okay. So anyway, we definitely have, or whereas I'd say I'm fairly neutral on it, we have one vote against this advert. Quenrich, what did you think of it?
I personally liked it. I'm not big on concepts like dignity. A concept like dignity. I think the meaning behind the, well, as Xcenu, or as it has been said already, the point was to bring the event to public consciousness, and the issue that Xcenu just mentioned, an authoritarian or fascistic message of do what we tell you to or we will hurt you. Yeah, that's a good point, but it isn't a major point since it isn't something that is taken seriously at all. That's my 2 cents.
Well, yeah, the reason I laughed was how ludicrous and over the top it was. I also think with that kind of, should we say, puerile humour and what have you, you might reach an audience that kids will get it on their phone and go, oh, look, I say kids, I mean, like, teenagers, people in their early 20s, who might not pay attention like we do, might not even have known that there were elections coming up, or that at least it's sort of, there's a part of me that thinks that all publicity is good publicity. I don't know. Anyway, pardon me, Gunderson?
I only watched like the first 30 seconds and I'd seen enough, to be honest, because it's just, as Xcenu said, it's just fucking ridiculous. And like, it kind of reminds me of a little thing they did a couple of years ago where it was like a PSA they put out to try and get young girls more interested in science, but it ended up being like just chock-a-block with like misogynistic stereotypes, and just, it was awful. Look up on YouTube later, science, it's the girl thing, you'll probably find it. And it certainly seems reminiscent of that. And I don't know, I just feel I'm more inclined to agree with Xcenu, even if I don't necessarily like the concept of dignity. It still comes across as just like there are better ways to communicate what it's trying to communicate than this.
May I chip in on dignity? The thing is, it depends very much on what the source is. A corporation don't really need to be dignified in its advertising, or some random person trying to make a name for himself or herself. But the government ought to be dignified, treat itself with respect, and treat the voters and public with respect. Advertising that is disrespectful to the government or to the voters should not come from the government. It's one thing if a corporation shows disrespect to its customers or whatever, that's an entirely different manner. But public service should be public service, not haha, we own you, haha.
I think I completely disagree. First of all, I see this as satire. I mean, it's an completely over the top something, it's in the lines of South Park for me. I mean, you don't take it completely seriously. You're not meant to. It's been made so over the top that anyone who takes this seriously needs to go see a doctor anyway. And then there's the part nowhere in it does it advocate the government doing this. Like the government at no point is he made a government official or anything, so it has nothing to do with fascism.
That's the point, actually, because they give him a tragic backstory. Notice the Freudian slip there, a tragic backstory. And they actually said tragic backstory because, is Bruce Wayne a fascist?
Exactly. It's like, the question for me is where does it say that it's the government? And does the government have to be dignified? Oh, no. No, it doesn't. There's a lot of places where the government shouldn't be dignified for a lot of reasons. When dealing with fascists or something, I don't expect my government to be dignified. I expect my government to be an absolute jackass and kick them the fuck out.
Well, I strongly disagree with that, personally. But it is the government that is doing this being the advertisement itself, not the things depicted in the advertisement. But personally, I really don't want my government to do South Park. We elect government officials to be government officials, not to be that sort of comedians.
But here's the thing, like if you go to the Wikipedia page and look under censorship or criticism of satire, that's exactly one of the censorships of it. It's in bad taste, but it's not. If it does the dignified effect of going, well, we got more young people to pay attention to an election. I completely think it's okay to do that.
Paying attention to the election is only one part. It's also how we pay attention to it. Do we want people to see the election as something important that we should take seriously and that is important for the people's sake? Or should we see it as something that, we ought to do this because the officials want us to do it? And
where does it say that? It says the officials want you to do it. It's an advertisement for it. When someone has like a product, like it says there is a product of some company, it doesn't say you have to buy said company's product. The whole thing about it is that if advertisement, it gives you the chance to see something you might not see. That's the point of advertisement. So saying that you have to buy this or it's fascist because they're giving you the chance to see something or run with something is just blatantly not true, in my opinion. I don't think it's a fascist thing. Yes, it's completely over-the-top violent, but it's supposed to leave an impression and leave a mark, and it's supposed to be aimed at people who are traditionally not very interested in elections.
I think they're very media savvy, and they've looked at what kind of things go viral, what kind of things...
Exactly. It's a very media-savvy campaign, and it's the kind of campaign I wish they would do more for elections, just to get people to actually pay the attention to it. I mean, the amount of people I've talked to who've been like, oh, there's elections, I probably won't vote. Which is for me, a much bigger problem than, let's say, a campaign which is maybe a little bit meh, which is questionable in content. I think people not voting is worse.
Yeah, I even as stupid as I think this advert is, I have to admit, if it gets the job done, then I'm in favour of it.
Exactly.
Even if it's getting the job done for the wrong reasons.
I mean, when you're seeing the kind of turnout we're having turnouts in the European elections which are below 25%, which is only a quarter of the people who are allowed to vote are actually using that right. That's an awful amount. I mean, I'm completely for using any kind of tactic to heighten the importance of said vote. 25% is miserable. Let's be honest here.
That's worse than the US, isn't it?
Yeah, that's worse than the US currently.
Wow.
US presidential election, I'm guessing.
No, US local elections, not presidential. Presidential elections about 40%.
Wow, fucking hell.
It's one of the worst turnouts in elections around. So, boosting this by any means possible, barring maybe actually forcing people to vote, which I'm not completely against. I think it's one of the things we can think about. I know a lot of people are not for it, and there's a lot of good reasons not to be for it, but that's a completely different debate. But, boosting it through means of maybe even controversy is not the worst thing in the world for me. I think it's a possibility to be looked at. And if it turns out it causes a little bit of controversy, my God, we're not 5-year-olds.
Yeah, we'll get over it.
Exactly,
I find it very unlikely that the reason people don't vote is that they don't know that there is an election to vote in. Yeah.
Yes.
And the only thing this advertising does is to show people that there is an election. That's the only positive thing it does. I think it might actually increase apathy, making people less likely to vote.
I don't think so. I mean,
I don't see how it would do that.
What I've heard from around, people I work with, the conversations I've had at work. At one point, I asked, what day is the election? Because I forgot, and I was just looking at plans for when I was going to take my vacation. And 3 of my colleagues did not know, which is, by the way, all my colleagues.
Ouch.
So, I'm completely for maybe raising the potential of people voting.
As we seem to have some kind of consensus here that this video wasn't the best approach, does anybody have any idea? I'll go around again of what they would consider to be a preferable way of getting people to the ballot boxes. Xcenu?
Well, why should people vote? That is the question we need to answer. And we need more debate between the political blocs, what they actually want to accomplish. That is one part. And of course, there's always the good old us versus them narrative, and something that is starting now on both sides is the building of 2 blocks. The Democratic bloc with pretty much all the standard parties on one hand, and on the other hand we have the Russian government and we have the fascist parties of Europe who are getting more and more friendly with each other. And this also makes it more important to vote. And I think this is something that they should press on with seriously.
Quenrich?
I think what we should do to get more people to vote is to enhance the fringe. So, if you mind the expression, evil bastard parties like UKIP or BNP or the True Finns. We need to make them stronger and more just evil, so as to bring up the good versus evil narrative and make people and then we might be able to get people to think and believe or understand that if they don't vote, the evil bastards will get what they want and shit will happen.
Well, in the UK, we've got one bunch of evil bastards in the lead in the polls, but we've already got a government of evil bastards. But it's just which evil bastard is more evil than the other. But I do definitely see. I mean, when I was back in the Socialist Worker Party, we wouldn't necessarily put up candidates, but we'd encourage people to vote. Just don't vote BNP. That was pretty much. But Gunderson, your thoughts?
I guess just. I mean, I can't remember. Does the video actually explain why voting is important, or does it just say, "Vote"? Do it, motherfucker.
That's pretty much what it says. Vote, motherfucker.
Vote.
They could have.
I mean, we've had campaigns similar to this. This is not the first campaign.
I think, I mean, yes, if it gets the job done, then fair enough. I just think it'd be better to explain why voting is actually important and not just fill it up with all this pomp and bullshit. Like, if it works, then I'm happy. But I think people need to understand why voting is actually important, even if they don't have much faith in any of the parties that they have to vote for. So that's basically just any kind of thing that actually explains why voting matters and why you're shitting in your own porridge by not voting.
Shitting in your own porridge. Yeah. Fratis, did you have anything to add?
I have a lot to add. Why people should vote. You seriously are not writing a master thesis in human rights and are asking me the direct question, why should people vote? That's my serious question. Because if you are, I don't know where to even begin. Cause
I'm not asking...
Not you, Xcenu. Because that is a question you should have had in epic proportions. Especially when talking about my country's history. I know I did this for most of my school career, starting in like 3rd grade. I talked about why people should vote and got drilled and hammered into my head why people should vote. I'm not going to invoke not Murphy's Law. I'm not going to invoke the law here, but...
Godwin's Law.
No, Godwin's, thank you.
Godwin's Law here at this point, but... Godwin's Law.
You just have to say the word Godwin's Law.
You know,
and there's an unspoken
why people should vote. Yes, people should vote. It's important that people's voices are heard. It's the only way in a representative democracy we can work. And no other democracy works before we get onto that bandwagon. Then Quenrich brought up the good versus evil. No, we should not go good versus evil. They tried that in England. Alex can tell you of those results.
I was hardly kidding, to be honest.
But the good versus evil thing just doesn't work. You can't paint a party as evil because it gives your opponents the opportunity to paint themselves as the victim and paint themselves at the same time as the anti-establishment, which parties like this like to do anyway, which gives them a whole other voting bloc, which is a lot more problematic. Like I said, the UKIP is the perfect example of this, because they're currently the anti-establishment party. What I think this vid did very good is bring the European elections into the conversation, which is always a good thing. It aimed at a very anti-voting public, which is also a good thing. It aimed at an age group that is very problematic for advertisement and for voting, which is another good thing. Did it do it well? No, but I don't think I could suggest anything better to make it better. So I'm not going to poop on someone when I can't give him a suggestion to say, this is how it should have been, because I can't think of anything, especially for the age group from 18 to 25, which is our age group, by the way. I can't think of a better way to address them. Well, except Alex. Alex is old.
Alex's.
Stop calling me old.
Well, you did mention some really good things about the video, but you also indirectly mentioned one of the reasons why the video is bad. The fascist parties are already the anti-establishment parties. I heard a lecture about a survey a while ago where they claimed that the people who vote for the Swedish fascist party, Sverigedemokraterna, most of them hate and despise this party. The reason they vote for it is that they hate and despise the other parties even more and just want to say fuck you to them. And I mean, we have low election turnout. That's very bad. We need to get it higher. And when the message becomes from the politician that, oh, by the way, we hate you as well, then that does encourage people to go and vote for the fascist party, I'm afraid.
But where in the video do you see anything that aims at an official voting, like an official member of the party? I don't see it anywhere, to be honest. I don't see Vote Man as an official affiliate of the Danish government. He has a sad backstory. He's a vigilante, or that's at least how I saw him in the video. He's a vigilante. You
have to think on two levels at once here, inside the video and the video itself. I totally agree with you about inside the video, but people will also see where the video is coming from. A lot of people will see this as a message from a part of the government, because it is.
I don't see it that way. I just don't see it that way. I mean, we can disagree upon that, but I just don't see it as the government is telling you to be violent. I just don't see that. I'm not seeing the Danish government supporting violence in this, and that's I think what it's trying to indicate for me, or at least what you for me you're trying to indicate in this whole thing. But
my point was that the video was disrespectful towards the voters, and I think that some voters will think that, okay, I don't really care about the elections, and these people in the government are obviously angry with me for that. They're making a quote funny unquote video about someone beating me up for not doing as they want to do. Let's just fuck them over by voting for the people they hate.
But even if they vote for a party you might not like, or the government might not like, it gives us no right to disenfranchise them. And no, I don't see the party as the video as a call that they're going to do violence or force you to vote. Like I said, once again, in the video itself, it's a vigilante. This is an important thing. It is not the Danish government walking around with military police or military telling you to go and vote, dragging you out of your home if you do not. It is a vigilante in his own actions, not of the Danish government, going, we should vote. Nothing else.
Two different levels.
It is from the Danish government.
You're entirely right inside the video, but I think that some people will see it as a bit of a difference when such a video is made by some branch of the government and when it's done by a private person. If this video had been made by a private person, I would just think that, okay, this was bad sense of humor, but that's pretty much it. I wouldn't say that it's a bad thing, but it is a bad thing that this kind of message is coming from a branch of the government, in my opinion.
I just don't see that, but you know.
I've been trying for the past few minutes. I've been trying to make hand signals to get you to notice that I have something to say. Somehow that doesn't work. Anyway, I've been under the impression that the video was commissioned by a non-partisan part of the government, which basically would mean that they don't have a party that they hate, and in that regard, the logic that a person would think that I'm going to vote for someone the people who commissioned this advertisement hate, because that would be impossible because there is no such party.
Also, another thing
I
is
think we're running out of time.
I've just tried to find out who actually commissioned it. It's, by the way, the Danish Parliament as a whole. That means the whole Parliament, not just one party, but the whole Parliament.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to make my final point, and as a thing, because I think this debate has gone long enough. I don't think it'll convince anyone here. The point is, and I've checked, I was looking for something else, but found this in an article, that it has actually worked in aiming at very young voters. it has actually worked in Denmark, and a lot of young watch this video, and at least now know that there is an election. That's a thing. I mean, whatever you think of the video doesn't really matter, but that's the important. I think that's the important thing to be said. That the video ain't got its point. I mean, it's been taken down by the Danish government. Not that that's going to work in any way, but there you go.
Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Well, yes. It's interesting, of course, how you have my own closing thoughts, that you brought up South Park. Because I was thinking of South Park, and of course, what you hear from non-voters, and I may get some hate for this, Gunderson's already had a go at me in the past for being a non-voter, having spent a chunk of my adult life being a non-voter. And of course, South Park has the douche and the turd thing, which people reference. It's a choice between a douche and a turd.
I had a conversation
Turd
when I was out
sandwich.
last night along those lines, and using the South Park douche and turd
Sandwich.
analogy.
Well, yeah, in the song it's just douche and turd, but the actual mascots were a giant douche and a turd sandwich, indeed. But yeah, this is what you get. Of course, I voted in the first ever London mayoral elections. And I was like, wow, I'm one of the first Londoners in history to vote for a democratically elected mayor of this city. And that was in around turn of the millennia. And of course, it's always a two-horse race. And I don't like Boris Johnson, and I don't like
Ken Livingstone.
I don't like either of them. And anything else is just a protest vote.
Boris Johnson is funny. So.
I mean, in this sense, the European election is different because parties will get a chance to have a seat. I mean, I don't know how it works in each of the countries. Each of the countries decide differently how your election system works. Like, I think England has districts, and you have so many seats per district and stuff like that.
All of the UK has like party list proportional representation, except for Northern Ireland.
In Germany, we have a system where the whole republic basically votes, and it's proportional.
As a one constituency.
Is one huge constituency, yes.
I think we have a similar here in Finland.
In Northern Ireland, I think it's like single transferable vote.
But the thing about that is that there is no protest vote in the European Union. You can vote for the person you like, and let's say they only get like 1 or 2% of the vote. They might get a seat or two.
So how many seats they have in each.
Depends on your system and a lot of other things. But there is a chance of you actually getting a seat.
Yep.
Or your party getting a seat. So there's no protest vote. So I think the European election in that sense is very good. It's not a two-horse race. You can go and vote Greens, and maybe the Greens will get a seat, or you can go and vote...
Well, this is true. The comparison I made was faulty. I was just trying to give an insight into the mind of a former, those horrible, disgusting creatures. I used to be one, the non-voter. But also, of course, with the government, with the general election, you can give a government a bloody nose, and you can't do that with which we try to do with Labour, of course. Although, God, come back, Gordon Brown, all was forgiven. But I'm just going to ask, because I didn't expect... It's great that we had some debate going here. I thought this topic was going to be the light topic, and it turned out to be this really heated half-hour thing. Like, wow. I'm just going to ask for closing thoughts and goodbye for goodbyes for the Monday edition. So, Xcenu, closing thoughts and goodbye?
I don't have much to add. I just hope that there will be a good election turnout and that people will vote for good things.
Amen to that. And your goodbye.
Goodbye.
And
Quenrich, closing thoughts and goodbye?
I don't really have any closing thoughts at all. And regarding goodbye, all right, see ya.
And Gunderson?
I guess I just reckon that, they could have gone about this in a better way, but yeah, just going with what Quenrich and Xcenu said, I just hope there's a good turnout. And yeah, see us.
And Fratis.
Well, in general, I hope it took its effect and some young people at least think about voting. If it does do that, I'm happy with it, and I think I could defend it in a state like I have here. If it doesn't, I'm sad about it. It was worth a try, my God. And I hope London burns and the rats go running away.
You had to go there.
Yes, I did.
And it's good night from me. Happy Tuesday, YouTube. Happy Tuesday, everyone. And a warm welcome back for all of our guests. A hello from Xcenu.
Hello.
From Quenrich.
Howdy ho.
From Gunderson.
Fuck y'all.
And Fratis.
Hey.
So, I think we all know what UKIP is, and I think we all know how demagoguery works. And, alright, UKIP, to be fair, are equal opportunities bigots, because they're not that keen on women, by the sounds of it. They don't like the gays. Where does the bigotry of this party end? And we're supposed to believe that it's just a few bad apples, yada, yada, yada. But in reality, we know the sorts of people that they attract and who are going to want to be their candidates. But they rely on pointing at a certain group. In this instance, of course, because they were originally a single-issue party. They were against Britain being in the European Union, and that was it. But their platform's anti-immigration, and you are supposed to hate and fear the Eastern European immigrant who was supposed to flood us, and it's kind of like, it's so anticlimactic. You know, the door's been open for a while, you're looking at your watch, the flood did not come, and I think the real question here, well, Mark Steele's question in the article, word for word, is, with no Bulgarians or Romanians, who can UKIP blame now? That's a good question, but another question is, if your whole platform as this kind of, let's face it, Nazi-style party is demagoguery where it's the complete demonization of a particular group, and then that rug is completely torn out from under you, basically, does this mean that UKIP, who have been previously in the lead in the polls, does this mean that UKIP are now fucked? And I'm sure you have a great deal to say on this, Xcenu.
I don't know whether facts will matter at all. While I'm not familiar with this particular party, since I'm not British, and I guess it's a British party, but yes, I know the style pretty much, and it's usually about a sort of inner truth rather than actually being true. I mean, there's always a great conspiracy against the people, and it doesn't matter all that much if the real perpetrators behind the conspiracy are conceptualized as being the Jews or the Muslims or the lizards from outer space or whatever.
So unfortunately, facts don't matter.
Demagoguery, no. In reality, it matters very much, but I don't think it matters all that much to demagoguery, no.
But do you think that's because people just want to hate and blame and fear?
People don't want to hate themselves, and when they are pushed and fail to find a more productive way of handling it, they need to feel that it's not... I'm not the one who is wrong. I shouldn't hate myself, I should hate them instead. They are the ones to blame, and who, quote, they, unquote, are, doesn't matter all that much. It's really interchangeable most of the time.
Right, yeah. Quenrich, your thoughts?
I don't believe I am really qualified in talking much about really deep psychology. So, but it seems to make sense that basically people like and people find easy, or at least easier, to blame someone else for things. And hasn't that really happened all throughout history anyway?
Yeah.
Basically, that's it.
Okay, Gunderson?
I don't think it's really going to make any difference whatsoever to, or very little at least, to their... maybe some people will not vote UKIP now that this has come out, but I think for the most part they're still going... Those who believe that the foreigners and the immigrants are coming over to do this and that, they're going to believe it regardless of what the facts say. Because the facts, what do facts matter, when I've got my neat little narrative. But I mean, the thing is, Nigel Farage even recently said, it's reasonable to feel uncomfortable with having a Romanian neighbour, which is what they used to say about Asian people back in the 70s.
Indeed, yes. If you want a nigger for a neighbour, vote Lib Dem or Labour. But, yeah, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, Nigel Farage is the leader of the United Kingdom Independence Party. So, yeah. I mean, do you think that radio interview was more harmful to him than the fact that we haven't got loads of Romanians and Bulgarians, quote-unquote, flooding us?
Oh, I didn't ever watch the interview, but I have heard it's pretty disastrous.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, that, at least, it won't help his credibility.
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that he had to be saved by an advisor, rescued from that interview. It just seems to me, because I have 5 UKIPers on my Facebook, that I kind of want them to remove me. But the thing is there a chance of getting them to pay attention to anything? Because if they pay attention, well, do they actually believe these horrible things, the racist things, the misogynist things, the homophobic things that candidates have been coming out with, or politicians have been coming out with? Because it's every day. It's like, I think what happens is when UKIP say there's a conspiracy against them, they are not just bitch whining. They're trying to get their supporters to ignore anything that would... basically, it's a cult mentality. I think that these are kind of brainwashed people by fear, and they won't see or hear.
It's maintaining the echo chamber.
Yeah. Fratis, your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, the interview is, I think, way more devastating than lots of Bulgarians and Romanians not appearing, because you don't need many Bulgarians or Romanians or Pakistanis or Iranians or whatever they are to create this narrative. You just need that one person, owning that corner store around in your neighborhood, or I don't know, working that job or something. That's enough. I mean, that is enough for a lot of people. I mean, especially if you've been unemployed for a long time, things like this. Tribal mentality is very easy to get people into, us versus them, Britons first, or something silly like that, which is another party. But, that tribal mentality is really, really easy to sell and very hard to disprove, or very hard to convince people that it's not so. So that's the problem. But I think the interview was more devastating. In the sense is that you have very nice sound bites, which I think an American news producer once said that sound bites rule the news, and they do. A sound bite like, I don't know, like some of the ones Farage produced in this train wreck of an interview, can ruin a party. Just look at the 2010 BNP implosion after that question time with Nick Griffin.
Yeah.
Which just made his party completely implode.
Yeah. Xcenu?
Well, us versus them mentality, it is a part of human nature, and it becomes very destructive when it becomes totalitarian, when people are reduced to being just one category. I mean, in sports and politics, it can be a good thing, parties competing with each other, sports team competing with each other, and so on. But when we reduce people to a category, then it becomes extremely problematic.
But that's what they're doing. It's us versus the immigrants. And
Exactly.
that's what the problem. One of the problems with these kinds of parties is that it's us versus them, and that's the kind of mentality they sell. And it's, like I said, a very effective mentality to sell, and very easy to sell.
Yeah. But yes. As a German very aware of your history, do you see a very strong echo of the Nazis in this?
It's hard to say. I think the Nazis had a similar strategy, but this isn't the first party to try this strategy and fail. A lot of parties since then have tried this strategy and failed. You need a certain kind of clout to pull off the strategy. Are we in an age where this strategy is viable and capable? Yes. We have a lot of people who feel disenfranchised, who feel very angry at the voting, at the elected officials. We feel a lot of people are very afraid of immigration. We have a lot of people who have the classical things what helped the Nazis get voted in. A large recession now would be a disaster, to be honest, because then we'd have all the factors that helped the Nazis get into parliament with a large majority. But I think till now we've seen every party implode in catastrophical ways in one interview or another, and not be able to save themselves.
Yeah.
Which has been, I guess, lucky in some senses, because some of these interviews is just, God, they've been awful. I mean, the Question Time with Nick Griffin a couple of years back was a disaster for that party. The interview now with Nigel Farage, I think, is going to haunt him for a very long time.
Hopefully.
I mean, that one quote, when he asked him what's the difference between Germans, his wife being German, and Romanians moving in next door, and he says, "You know the difference," in a very despicable undertone, is going to haunt him for a long while. It is just too good a soundbite not to use.
Yeah. I think, my closing thoughts on this is going to be a quote I saw on YouTube. I'm going to paraphrase it, and I can't remember the name of the guy, but it's something like, "I fear people think that fascism always comes with people with grotesques in fancy dress. That it's like a rerun of a World War II movie with people with stormtroopers in uniforms. But no, fascism comes as your friend." Xcenu, closing thoughts and goodbye?
Well, I strongly agree with what you just said, and there's one thing that's been puzzling me so much over the years, where I sometimes encounter people who consider themselves to be anti-fascist. They are so much against fascism that they want to identify all fascists and have a final solution to the fascist problem, pretty much having, putting up concentration camps and gassing all imagined fascists, and they can't see that this is fascism. So that is my final remark, that this whole totalitarian kind of us versus them is the problem, much more than what groups are being assigned. Good night, everyone.
And Quenrich?
What you said earlier, your finishing quote, Alex, reminded me of this quote that has been misattributed to an American Nobel laureate of literature, whose name I can't remember, but which basically says when fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross.
Yeah.
Basically, it will come looking like a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's your goodbye.
Yes, that's my goodbye.
That's your goodbye. Okay. And final thoughts and goodbye, Gunderson.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add to what's already been said.
Just a goodbye then?
Yeah, so yeah, goodbye.
And Fratis, final thoughts and goodbye.
I was trying to find a quote, but I can't remember the hell of me where the quote was. But it's basically a quote from a German politician saying that he does not fear the Nazis wearing jack boots and uniform, but the ones in fine dresses in the upper classes. I think that's the true thing to take from parties like UKIP and others, and this kind of debate.
Yeah.
It's not to worry about the ones that you can openly see, but the ones you can't. God no, I cannot remember the quote from For the Life of Me. I will go and find it, and maybe I will post it in the comments or something.
Okay. And on a sort of lighter note, I did like how Mark Steele in his article made reference to Cybermen. Because I definitely do fear fascism if it comes in the form of Cybermen. However, I am also open, if a Cyberman wants to come here and live peacefully and work here, then I completely support that. So, on that bombshell, it's a good night from me. Happy Wednesday, YouTube. Happy Wednesday, everyone. And once again, introducing our guests, Xcenu.
Hi there.
And Gunderson.
Oi oi.
And Fratis.
Moin moin.
And I am Alex, and I am from London in the United Kingdom, which you probably already knew. And I forgot to ask people to say, so we have Xcenu in Sweden, Gunderson in Yorkshire, I don't know what country that's in, some far away place, nothing to do with me. And
I heard it was in Scotland.
Oh yes, it is, that's right, yes. Gunderson from Scotland, from Yorkshire, Scotland, and Fratis from Germany. And the question tonight is, should all of Europe combined to create one mega super army because of the threat posed by Russia? Right. Well, I'll go in the usual order and begin with Xcenu.
Well, when it comes to European army versus NATO, I don't have an opinion, but I do think that the free world needs to defend itself against the Russia that is getting increasingly undemocratic and outright fascist, and is aggressive, more and more so.
Indeed. And Gunderson?
Sorry about the European army thing. I guess I would, in theory, yes, I would support such a thing. Whether or not, I don't really know whether or not it's actually possible in practice, at least right now. So I really can't say much on the issue, to be perfectly honest.
It is hard to imagine all these European nations cooperating. I think that I think it would be clunky, at least at first. I don't think
it would really be very possible in these times of economic downturn.
Okay, but if the alternative is, say Russia is a real threat, I mean, it's possible that we won't have a choice but to at least try.
Yeah, that's true.
Fratis?
I think in a lot of ways it's a very good idea. I actually like the idea. I think every nation currently in Europe spends some kind of money, barring Switzerland, but that's not part of the EU anyway, spends some kind of money, which is usually quite a bit of money actually, on defense spending for an army.
Yeah.
So instead of buying 16 different types of tanks, we go in as a European Union, unify our forces, and buy one kind of tank, which should, in theory, cut down costs. The question is, how much would we spend? I'd probably guess about 3% of the national budget would be a good idea, which is the current NATO thing, which we agreed on with the NATO thing. And it doesn't just isolate us against Russia, it also isolates us against America. Right now, America has all the tanks and all the power. A stronger Europe could tell America to go and fuck itself, which I think sometimes America could use. Someone to go, no, we don't want that. And no, it's not because we hate freedom, we love freedom, and that's exactly why no.
Oh.
You know, and we're not militarily...
It's disperse power out a bit.
Yeah. Basically become a third player on the world stage. Or fourth player in this case, because China... Well, fifth player, because China and India are still kicking around too.
Is India particularly strong militarily?
Not militarily, but economically, yes.
I thought we were really only discussing, like, military capacity.
It's never just... That's the thing with these kinds of things. It's never just one thing, it's all the things at once. But yeah, world power, we currently are an economic world power, as are other nations, but there is the thing with the military in Europe. We're a fractured military nation. And I do see Europe as one huge nation in the world stage, especially if we want to stay relevant in the next couple of years. And while India might not yet be a world player militarily, look how quickly that changed with China. India is a very, very large nation with a lot of power behind it. Give it a couple of years to really get that burst of energy economically, and we will see militarization, especially because they're so close to China.
Yeah, I suppose that's a new angle. Anyone have anything to add to that?
I have one thing to say. Anyone else?
Go ahead, Xcenu.
Okay. I don't believe in having military for the sake of being a, quote, player, unquote, in any way, but for defense against aggression, direct aggression, and the kind of, oh, but you don't have an army, so, you know, we could do things, that kind of aggression too, which Russia is currently doing.
Yeah.
But what we really need to unite on is energy politics, not being dependent on Russian gas.
Yeah, but that's again a completely different debate. And
yes,
I mean that's the important debate. You know, right now as single nations, we cannot and are absolutely not capable of standing up to Russia or America. You know, if America tomorrow, I mean, this is a completely unrealistic scenario, but if America tomorrow decided to invade Europe, we're fucked. To be quite honest. Even a nation like England or France is completely fucked. The only nation I see problems with is actually the Nordic nations and Switzerland. Mainly because there's lots of mountains and everyone has guns.
Everyone has guns in Nordic countries.
Nordic countries tend to be more pro-gun than a lot of other European.
Well, I knew Finland was, but Sweden as well.
They tend to be more gun than other nations, and Switzerland is another one, which tends to be, you know...
Is this true?
Sorry.
Is this true, Xcenu?
I don't know for sure. I don't know we have a lot of hunters. We don't have a lot of generic gun maniacs, and I think we have rather strict gun control, but we do have a lot of hunters, yes.
I think in Switzerland, and this might be a little out of date, and my source is QI, the TV show, which Gunderson's going to call me up on, but according to QI, in Switzerland, if you are a male over 16, you are automatically a member of a reserve army by default and have by law to own at least one gun.
Don't they have like a national militia or something?
Here it is. Sweden has 31.6 guns per 100 people. Norway has... Let me check. But yeah, basically, there is a lot more guns there than in other countries. And the terrain and the type of people that live there make it very hard to invade. That's really the important thing. Invading a country that is huge with very few people in it is very hard. But that's not the point I was trying to make. Like I said, I'm just trying to say that currently we have no control of this thing. And a great example is Libya, which the French tried to, intervene in and miserably failed, and then needed help. Right now, we're what is it, Mali? We're also intervening, but we're doing that as European...
I think, no, it's only really the French that are doing that in Mali.
Mali, we're helping, at least the Germans are helping too.
Well, I mean, the French are the only ones actually deploying soldiers, and I think that's kind of stopped now anyway. That was like a year ago now.
No, the Germans have just expanded their operations.
Are you sure you're not thinking of somewhere else?
No. I know it's Mali with the operations, because it's currently we're deploying 90 soldiers, which are all pilots who are flying fuel and transport planes, basically support.
No, I mean the French had frontline soldiers.
I'm pretty sure they're not doing frontline operations anymore, but as far as I know,
they were. Yeah, I'm thinking more about the original intervention a year ago.
But they are actually, I think, as far as I know, they're still doing support operations, and I know Germany is doing support operations. They've actually just increased their soldiers to 250. So we are as a European nation doing operations together already. Like the French and the English also have an aircraft carrier together, or a set of them even. So operations like this already exist. So things like this already exist. And will continue to exist, I think, and will become more as Europe becomes more important. And I think planning a European army would be a good idea. It would also allow us to standardize weapons and training throughout Europe, which is also a great idea, I think, in a complete sense. And I think it would drive the whole initiative, or the whole idea of the European Union forwards too, which is a peace initiative. Which sounds weird because it's an army, but it would then be an army for all of us. I don't know. I might be pushing it too far, but that's my idea. I think for me, it's a huge thing.
Ah, okay. Well, if I open up the floor, does anybody have anything to add? Okay, well, we'll have closing thoughts and goodbyes then. Thank you very much for being on again, Xcenu. Closing thoughts and goodbye.
Have a good time.
Okay, and Gunderson.
See you later.
And Fratis.
We'll see everyone later, and may all European cities prosper except London.
Why did I not see this coming? Right, okay. Well, thank you very much to my guests. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you've had a wonderful Wednesday. And it's good night from me. Happy Thursday, YouTube. Happy Thursday, everyone. And I'm basically going to... I'm Alex. I live in London, in the UK. And I'll start by saying... By the way, check the article linked in the description. Why do I think the European Parliament is important? I'm going to give a very disappointing answer. I'm going to say that I was a non-voter. I was a very enthusiastic young voter, and then became a non-voter. And to be honest, my philosophy with these elections is vote, but don't vote for UKIP. that's where I'm going into this. And I know I confuse people because I sometimes seem political. How could I have spent a chunk of my life as this disillusioned non-voter? And to be honest, while I may rethink this, I'm pretty much only in this not because of anything I'm pro, not because of anything positive, but because I just despise UKIP, or I might even have not really noticed that my ballot paper had arrived in the mail. You may not like this, but I'm going into this with it's not that I'm voting for someone, it's that I'm not voting for UKIP. And some people might say that that's not necessarily the best attitude, but it is perhaps an understandable attitude. I have, however, at least become interested again. So somebody could say that I've made made lemonade out of lemons, whatever. But Xcenu, what do you think is like the most important thing? What your personal favourite? Why are these elections important?
I think the European Union is what we make it, and the world needs a European Union that is by the people, for the people, and can be a democratic force in the world.
Aha, succinct. And Gunderson?
I guess my answer was thinking more about why the EU itself, as opposed to the elections, is important.
That's fine.
Because basically it makes, member states don't have to pay for importation taxes. Basically, they only, for products that are exchanged between them, and they only have to pay for the product itself, unlike non-EU members, which do have to pay importation fees. So basically, vodka goes, if we left the EU, like UKIP wants us to, vodka goes from being 15 quid a bottle to 35 quid a bottle.
Wow.
And other such things.
Okay. Fratis?
There's a lot of reasons why this election matters. I think, to give the context why it really matters, this election matters more than other elections, is things are changing in the EU currently. We're currently at a point which I'm going to call a tipping point in the European election, as in that very certain things are changing. Like, for the first time since the EU has been founded, the president of the European not the president of the European Union, the president of the EU Commission won't be voted in by people behind closed doors who are leaders of the nations for whatever reason. This time, it's going to be voted in open and publicly within the parliament, which we have voted. So it's a representative of the parliament, which will be an interesting step forwards. That's really important. So even, let's say you want to vote for some party that might not get lots and lots of seats, it's still an important vote, because you're going to decide who's the president of the commission, which gets a lot of the work for the laws and what direction the European Union will go in the future. Will we stay a force of peace and unity, or will we break apart like the Eurosceptics want? Will we stay a confederacy, or will we going more through a federal republic? These are all questions we're going to decide in the next 5 to 10 years. So voting in this election is very important for me. So I feel that, I want to be part of that debate. I want to decide how my nation will further, integrate in this union. And if you think the European Union doesn't matter, I'm just going to say that I don't think any European nation right now will matter within the next 50 years if we don't start, sorting stuff out as Europeans. I don't think Germany will continue to matter, and a lot of nations, especially England, are starting to feel that. At least economically, England doesn't really matter all that much anymore, and is losing in over the last couple of years, has lost in prestige and points on the world stage. So the question is as Europe, can we continue to matter, and do you want to continue to matter? So I think for me, the European election's very important.
I'm gonna ask a follow-up question on that one, because Germany, as I understand it, is still a superpower, and a couple of years ago, and maybe you can verify this or not, I actually read, and this was even on a front page, but I can't remember what the newspaper was. The moment I thought that Europe was fucked was when I read that the Bundesbank had started printing Deutschmarks again. That's when I went, oh, well, if Germany aren't into the euro, then that's the end of the euro. I know this was a few years ago, and I'm wondering if this is actually true now, but I think my reaction is understandable. A, is Germany still a superpower, and B, did you start printing Deutschmarks again?
Well, to question one, yes and no. In an economic sense, yes, we're economically speaking, one of the strongest nations in the world. Economically, we still hugely matter. It's why we have such a strong and prominent position in the European Union. Is because we economically still matter in the world and can dictate, even to countries like Russia, have to at least keep their peace with us in a certain sense, because we're economically still very important to them. So in an economic sense, yes, we're still a superpower. In a military sense, no, we've never been a superpower. Well, actually, we were a superpower for a very short time, but that didn't end too well for my nation. And I know, as far as I know, the Germans haven't stopped printing. They stopped printing Deutschmark in 2001. The current head of the German bank is he has a complicated feelings for Europe.
We hear the sound of research, people.
I can't remember his name right now. I can never remember his name. He's actually no. But yeah, basically, he has a complicated thing because he has a bit of a different position in finance than the current head of the EZB has, which is Mario Draghi. I like Mario Draghi's approach, and I don't like the position of the basically the German representative, who is super conservative. He's a super conservative economist. Jens Weidmann is his name. That's the one.
Okay.
I can never remember his name. He's pretty young. He actually ran against Draghi and lost, mainly because Draghi has tons of charisma, and Weidmann is the perfect representation of a German, a bureaucratic man in a suit with the charisma of a dead ant.
Right. Yes, I've actually been told by somebody who originally is from South Africa, then he lived in Germany, then he lived in the UK. And,
I think I know who you mean.
I forget the guy's name. But yeah, he said...
Cases and Materials, by any chance?
That's the guy, yeah. He told me that the British think that they're bureaucratic, and if that they almost rival the Germans, but yeah, it's like the British are so bureaucratic, and Germany is like, bitch, please. But sorry, I didn't mean to derail you, Fratis. Carry on.
Yeah, but like I said, basically, he has a little bit of a different fiscal policy than Draghi, and you know, you can see that from both ways. You can agree, and both of them have positive things. I think, like the Conservatives in England would like the German guy more than they like Draghi. I don't think necessarily he would be the best for Europe currently. Draghi's been quite good for Europe, even though it surprised me a little bit. But yeah, basically, I hope Europe can grow together more and keep going down the way they are.
Yeah. Okay, and we have a token non-European. Coqui, do you have any insights into this?
Well, first, I want to applaud everyone's maturity for not saying anything when Fratis said Germany and dictate in the same sentence.
I didn't notice.
Also, just a reminder that today is indeed Thursday, and that's totally not false. But I guess one of the big concerns for me, as someone who's totally not going to vote due to geographic difficulties, is climate change and how this is going to be addressed. You know, there was a UN conference that wasn't too long ago that was suggesting some changes in the infrastructure, you know, a push towards nuclear, but also efforts to, I guess, store common carbon emissions. And you're going to need facilities for that. You're going to need an infrastructure for that. You're going to need laws in place if we want to, you know, basically stop the planet from becoming a total mess. And so on that, we need, you know, people voting for the right people, putting them in office that they can come up with good international laws, particularly when it comes to transportation and whatnot. So, yeah, I would say that's what's especially important about these international multilateral organizations and why who's in charge matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely true. I'll open up the floor. Does anybody have anything to add at this point?
I think Fratis' answer was the best. I really didn't have anything to say.
I have one thing to add.
Xcenu?
Yeah, we have been talking about being a superpower or not, but that's not really the issue. The issue is how much of a superpower, how strong. As it is, the world has one superpower period, and that's a rather problematic structure. USA is somewhat democratic. It could be better, could be worse, and it can become much worse if we're unlucky. But Russia is on the rise, and we need a third option. China is on the rise too, but China is totally undemocratic, and Russia is very much in that direction as well. If we could have two democratic superpowers in the world, two really strong democratic superpowers in the world, competing with each other through democratic means and cooperating with each other on issues on democracy and so on, we need a European Union that is much stronger and much more stable and much more unified than it is today, and is much more democratic than it is today.
I'm going to counter that and say the European Union is the European Union of when I went to the school, or even longer ago when Alex went to the school, was a completely different European Union to what we're seeing today. We're changing. The European Union is consistently changing more and more towards a democratic thing. I think as a counter to that is it's not how much of a superpower we want to become or how democratic we are. First of all, we're moving towards democracy. When the European Union started, when me and Alex were a bit younger, it was unrecognizable from the European Union we are today. Now we have a parliament which is gaining ever more powers. Like this time they will be voting for the president. So we have an indirect vote for the president. The democracy, measures of democracy are going up and up and up, not down in the European Union. And to the superpower thing is, if we don't move, and Britain's missed this chance 10, 15 years ago, we don't do something about everything that's happening right now, in 10 or 15 years, Europe as a whole will not matter on the world stage, as we see more and more bloc and other nations move up to that plate. Like I said, India, I've mentioned in the broadcast this week, China's been mentioned, Russia resurging, America. I'm going to mention South America, a lot of South American nations. Brazil is another one, which is very much in the coming. Very great, humongous amount of growth down there, and a lot of potential for growth still. If we don't act as nations, we will not matter within 10, 15 years. We will be irrelevant on the world stage, or irrelevant in the sense of broader politics and decision making. So yes, I think that's a very important thing to say, and I think democracy-wise, yes, there's still a long way to go, but we're on that road.
Okay, Xcenu, would you like to respond?
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I mean, we are moving in the right direction, but we need to continue in that direction and encourage it as much as we can. And one thing that's really annoying me with this election in Sweden is that we're getting very little information about what we're actually voting for. They are only talking about the local parties that we vote for, not what blocks in the European Parliament these parties actually represent.
Same in the UK.
I think that's the same throughout Europe, and it's one of the problems I'm currently seeing. Maybe when on Saturday we debate the whole European president story, you'll hear more of it, because there was actually a thing, like, I think, was it the Labour or was it the Conservative? One of the parties asked the presidential candidate of the European Union not to run a campaign in their country. And stuff like that. I think that's still a thing we have to go ahead. But like, I want to say it this way: the European Union isn't perfect yet, but we can still move forward. It's not set in stone, and it's nowhere near as set in stone as other political things within countries. Like, most of our countries have settled down, are very much set in their ways, as I'm going to call it, of the way of things, and change is very hard to move right now. But within the European Union, change is still very much possible, and I mentioned it earlier, that we could either see a federal republic, we could see it all break apart, or we could see a confederation, which kind of what we kind of have right now, kind of confederation. I would very much like to see a federal republic, but that's because I'm pretty much a federalist in that sense.
Yeah, I was actually going to comment on that. It seems as though, the EU is becoming not only more and more democratic, but more and more country-like. It's becoming a bit more federalist. I wonder, how much more time do you think there'll be before we see a single sort of European state? France and Germany and all that will continue to exist. The political entity would just be known as Europe.
I think it really depends on what kind of climate we have in the world. If things with Russia and other countries continue, I think we'll see a speedier recovery, and we could see it within our lifetimes. If this isn't the case and everything calms down again, I think nationalism will win out, and we might never see it. That's the thing. There's still a very strong feeling against being Europe as a whole and not identifying as single nations. Though I don't understand it, because, I think in some senses, with foreign policy, it makes sense debating as the European Union, not as single nations.
Okay, and I think this. I just want to know if you feel the same way, that a united Europe would be able to handle issues like, climate change and reducing the carbon footprint and such better than the nations could individually. Do you feel the same way, or?
Yeah, I think a lot of the work we do on that kind of sense is much better than what the national parliaments do. When you see the work from the European Union, and there's reasons for this, why, one of the reasons is that the European Union has to. Basically, you have to work very thoroughly through the whole issue, have to work it out very well because you have a lot of different countries, with different national interests sitting on the parliament who get to vote on it. You don't just have people from Germany who are very pro-industry, but you also have people from countries like, what's a very anti-industry country? I don't know right now, but you have countries with very different national interests and national feelings working together. So you work through the issues much more detailed and often come out with better results than the national parliaments do.
Yeah. And actually, this reminds me of something Alex said earlier, and I'd say that in our voting system, first past the post voting, it should go without saying that you're not voting for the winner, you're voting against the worst people. Which, is true. It's our civic duty to keep the worst people out of office.
Yeah, but with that, you're already steering the nation towards what you think is better than alternatives. And I mean, with a lot of countries, as far as I've heard and read, I've also heard from this group, is that for this election, not everything is first past the post, which is nice. I actually hate that.
I think, we use, for most of the UK, we use party list PR. And I don't think most of the EU users... is there anywhere for the EU elections that uses first past the post?
I have no idea. Let me go have a look.
But yeah, fuck first past the post. I hate that voting system so much.
Well, we were offered an alternative, but it was shit. No one understood it.
No, everyone thought Nick Clegg supports it, so it must be shit. Which, yeah, okay. It just goes to show Nick Clegg is basically just David Cameron's PR meat shield.
To be honest, I actually kind of like the alternative vote, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I like the AV.
Well, it didn't work in Australia. Australia tried it, thought fuck this shit, and went back again.
Fucking hell, really? Back to first post.
Yeah,
they didn't support what we call AV. They tried that in Australia. They didn't like it.
I think
really, because of all of like the possible voting systems, alternative vote is what appealed to me the most.
There are different AVs. I mean, this option, I can see a flaw, because if you can go first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice, somebody could somewhat agree with a party like UKIP, for example, and put them as third or fourth option. They could get in on the third or fourth option. So I do think that problem exists, along with the fact that also a lot of people voting on AV didn't understand AV. It wasn't presented in the way that people got.
Well, I mean, the anti-campaign had a lot more money behind it and a lot more publicity.
I suppose can I just point out one difference with Australia, which was touched upon earlier, is that they have compulsory voting, which could make a difference. But then I don't agree with forcing people to vote. Carry on.
I think bringing it back to the main topic, I've completely lost the train of thought through that side debate. Is I really like the idea of a strong Europe to counteract the lawful good, to use a geeky term, America, who's like, yes, let me democratize this part of the world, and Europe tends to have a more balanced, more, let's say, slower approach to things. Like, let's have a conversation first, and then see what happens.
What Eddie Izzard would call the relaxed and groovy people.
Yeah. We tend to have that more.
Yes, can I just say, Queenie has just joined us, so we have an evil American among us. Hello, Queenie.
Don't you trash talk America. You gotta have respect for the red, white, and blue. Dirty, hippie, liberal.
Wait, How many
communist
European flags have red, white, and blue?
Britain, France,
You're bad about them.
Russia.
You hear that? We're gonna bring you some freedom.
But yeah, basically,
Croatia.
I think as a whole, it would do the world good to have another force in it that is strong and is very founded in democracy and the idea of democracy.
Well,
And
America
also,
will bring you all the freedom you want.
also a set of countries that is, how does one describe it best? Is very adept at has seen enough bloodshed on its soil to kind of not feel that that's the best option anymore. But
Because
yeah,
it's even better than that. Actually, now I'm thinking, what if y'all voted for the EU to join America? That would be awesome.
We would not do that.
Canada's
We
not
need
allowed,
to make
though.
a super pact full of freedom and democracy. Oh, I made Alex sigh. Dang.
but yeah, that's the my thoughts on the European Union.
Okay, does anybody else have any, actually, Queenie, from what you've heard of this part of the discussion, what input do you have?
I believe that we do need to continue progressing if our prospective nations want to remain relevant on the global scale. I think that potentially there's no stopping other nations from rising up to that level, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that I know a lot about the subject, being the token American and all, but...
Hey. Well, you're not the only token non-European, because we do have Coqui.
He's Puerto Rican, it doesn't count. No, I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry.
I'd say there's a couple of points here. I mean, one of them is that ultimately, power does matter. And my main focus, because I don't know everything about everything, is more to do with social and cultural issues. And in many ways, we are quite lucky people in terms of the rights of gay people, in terms of the rights of women, in terms of things like that. But if we can fall, that can all be lost. And where I see threats like, for example, Russia, this does matter, because the work that's been done, and do I even see things in terms of not even good versus evil, because I see advanced versus less advanced. That could make me sound like some kind of supremacist, but I feel justified. And that's the thing that gets me. So in terms of Europe and in terms of the world stage, we want rights for everyone. You have to teach people to respect you. So ultimately, yes, power matters and demanding respect matters. That's my closing thought. So, Xcenu.
My closing thought is that united we stand, divided we fall. That is true for Europe and for all of mankind. Bringing Europe together is a big step towards a more unified world, and that is something the world completely needs. If we look at the growing fascism, it's all about dividing the world into ethnicities, with suddenly everyone who speaks the Russian language by definition belonging to Vladimir Putin, and everyone of another ethnicity belonging to the would-be Führer of that particular language group or skin color group or what the fuck ever. And these fascist movements, I mean, the nationalists are pretty much uniting in and outside of the European Union. And I mean, they don't want to be united with each other in the long run, but they are united against unity more and more. It's rather fascinating to see, and it's really disturbing.
Indeed. Fratis, your closing thoughts?
I think my closing thoughts are, if we continue down the path of more democracy and more growing together, I think we have something going that would work very well and will continue to work very well. And will, I hope at least, create great prosperity for all of us and for the whole European Union and outside the European Union. I also hope that we would see a more peaceful, more growing Europe in that sense.
Yeah.
In other senses, I just hope we don't fall down that nationalist streak, or we have a lot of people who feel so disenfranchised that they vote something like UKIP into power. But that's some of the worries I have, and I hope it just doesn't turn out like that. I think we could do a lot of good on the world stage too. I think we could be a moderating force for the Americans and a moderating force for a lot of the other superpowers currently out there, which would be good. So that's my closing thoughts, and I hope Europe stays that way and can continue down that path.
I agree. I would say, I mean, sorry, I had a thought a second ago which appears to have disappeared from my brain. Oh, damn it. It's gone. That always happens. Oh, well, if it comes back to me, it comes back to me. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Coqui, your closing thoughts.
Well, I guess we're all sort of in the same boat here. I believe in multilateralism and collaborative efforts, and I think greater unity will help Europe deal with a lot of the pressing global concerns that are around today, be it security or economic or, particularly climate is what I'm especially worried about. It's important that, everyone try to work together and be more unified and face the problems that we're seeing, worldwide, as opposed to taking things just to the national scale.
Yeah. And Gunderson?
I have two thoughts here. One is that I think it kind of touches on something Xcenu said earlier about it's somewhat problematic how much power America has militarily. I mean, the thing is, I would say America has certainly been far more ethical about their international diplomatic power than we were when we were the most powerful country. Granted, we weren't nearly as powerful as they are now, because maintaining several colonies all over the world is bloody expensive. And plus you have to, keep rebellions that happen in check and all that. And it's hard trying to inspire loyalty to a foreign monarch is not an easy task. But anyway, yeah. I guess I think I agree with what Fratis said, that if there's also a united Europe, there could also be like these two. I think it'd be better if they were cooperative rather than confrontational to America, which I'm not saying that's what Fratis was saying. I'm just saying, I guess these two political entities, the United Europe and America, would be better working as allies to, help for the good of humanity. And also, secondly, with all this nationalism and stuff that we're seeing across Europe, the thing is with the Eurosceptics and in various countries, and I'm mostly going to focus on the UK because that's where I live and that's where I'm used to hearing the xenophobic Eurosceptic people. I've noticed there's a lot of parallels between Eurosceptics, like nativist Eurosceptics, and basically, Scottish nationalists. Because they both don't seem to realise what their interest is in remaining part of what they are currently part of. If you get what I mean. They let cultural differences, which aren't really that big a deal when you get right down to it, take precedent over, the economic benefits which they enjoy for being part of this union. And I guess it's just national. I guess in this case, it's nationalism that actually has the potential to result in a new country being formed. But I mean, really, actually, I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this. I guess I just think that's an interesting comparison. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I can see what you mean there. Does anybody have any feedback on that?
I mean, it's an interesting thing. I just don't see the Eurosceptics becoming that strong or powerful. I think the pro-European forces within the European Union are, to date, still stronger.
You reckon?
What the numbers I've been hearing, yes, luckily.
Even in the UK.
I don't know about the UK. I only know about the European Union as a whole.
Okay, because keep in mind we do kind of define ourselves in opposition to the rest of Europe.
Yeah, but that's I think in some cases, like David Cameron plays the big Eurosceptic on stage, but actually isn't a terrible Eurosceptic in reality.
European politician.
As a European politician, he's actually not terribly against Europe.
He's just a terrible human.
No, he's not. In the European sense, he's the best the Conservatives currently have. And I'm actually deadly afraid if let's say he lost the next election in a major way, who he gets replaced with. Because I doubt it's going to be better. It's probably going to be a lot worse.
What?
Yes.
I don't have huge confidence in Miliband, but are you seriously saying Miliband will be in any sense?
No. I mean, the replacement in the Conservative Party is the head of the Conservative Party.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, yeah. Well, yes, because the Conservative Party, for fuck's... you might as well be going through a sewer. Do I want this rat turd or do I want this used tampon?
But yeah,
depends on how absorbent the tampon.
Okay, now Queenie, you are of course Queen of America. This is a big evil superpower, and Europe could potentially pose a threat to you in America. So do you have any plans for when we attack you?
First, we're gonna bomb Gunderson's house because he was bad-talking America.
I thought I was doing the opposite.
I approve of this.
I thought I was the one defending America.
You were like, America's abusing power, except for not as much as British would be as if when we were in power and blah, 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 blah. All I heard was a bunch of talking. We're still going to bomb your house. I'm sorry, that was terrible. What if we bombed your house?
At least I'll rate two fingers as the planes take the pictures of... Oh, that didn't make any sense as a thought. Never mind. That was a freaking thought.
That doesn't make any sense.
We'll bomb your house with Smuppets, and that way you will have all the plush rump ass you could ever want. And that is how we will spread freedom.
I want to
and then I'll survive the blast and say, fucking hell, I nearly spilt me pint.
The Smuppet invasion of Yorkshire. This has to be a movie.
What the hell is
the first one I'm making is going to be of Armored Skeptic, actually, because I found out I had Grey Fleece, and I was like, I could totally make an Armored Skeptic Smuppet, even though it's going to be so fucking creepy. It's going to be so awesome. Do you know what a Smuppet looks like?
Nope.
It's like this. It's got a long nose, and it's got like kind of floppy arms and legs, and it's got the most voluptuous plump booty. Like it's got a perfectly molded puppet booty, and that is the basis of the whole Smuppet thing. It's actually a thing from Homestuck, but I figured out I had some Grey Fleece, and I was like, I gotta make a Smuppet of Armored Skeptic, because that sounds like it's totally not weird at all. I'll link you a picture at some point, I guess. But yeah. And that is how we will spread our freedom, with plump stuffed animal booties or whatever.
Aha.
That's actually probably what I would do if I was in charge of America. Taxpayer dollars at work.
And I think with a policy like that, you should probably be president of Europe, actually. With a policy like that, you would make a better London mayor than Boris Johnson, at least. And welcome back, Xcenu. I thought we lost you, Xcenu.
Yeah, it's technical difficulties.
Aha. Okay. So, I'm going to go with everybody, bearing in mind the order in which I can see you is Xcenu, then Fratis, then Coqui, then Gunderson, then Queenie. So, Xcenu, do you have closing thoughts on this issue and a goodbye to the people?
Well, I already said my closing thoughts, so good night, everyone.
And Fratis?
Have a good night, everyone, and a great end of the week.
Mm-hmm. And Coqui?
May the hamster prosperity smile upon Europe now and forever.
I always actually do feel that the great hamster is looking over all of Europe and its nations. And Gunderson?
Have a good and fuck London, because Fratis forgot to say it.
Oh yeah! Somebody didn't insult my city of...
I was expecting it and all.
Ah, the bastard. I said that wrong. The bastard. Because my dad's from Yorkshire, so the bastard. But yeah. I haven't spoken to my dad for so long, I've forgotten how to say bastard the Yorkshire way. But anyway, bastard. That sounds more Scouse. I've lost it.
It sounds northern either way.
Okay. And, Queenie, are you prepared to answer for the crimes of your hideous superpower nation and everything that just apologize for being American?
Fuck no. I didn't have any choice in being American. I'm not gonna apologize for that shit. Fuck you.
I say it in jest. I love you.
Oh, I know. That's why I said the whole fuck you thing. If I thought you were serious, I might actually apologize.
So you're telling me that what didn't happen was that you were being born in Japan, and then as you were being born, you said, "No, Mum, point your fanny towards America."
I'm an unapologetic American bastard. Suck it.
Yeah, isn't that how it worked with Obama being born in Kenya? Like, I don't know.
No, Mom, point your back towards America. There's more opportunity there. I might be president someday. Shoot.
I want to. Where are they going to say Hillary Clinton was born? We need to open a
They're
book.
going to use the sexist card, not the nationalist card.
Yeah, you can't do it with a white person who actually has their own name.
Oh.
At least Clinton's an Anglophone name, right?
Think so.
She talks like American. She could be from Canada.
That's the only thing that would even vaguely make sense.
Yeah, but
But is there, like, can you really mobilize the anti-Canadian crowd in America? I reckon not.
I'm really sure that Hillary Clinton was born on Endor.
You could claim she's French Canadian.
I don't think that would get nearly the level of vitriol. I wouldn't get nearly the level of vitriol that being the nigger president does.
Wow, you put it so eloquently.
I don't know.
I'm just saying what they're thinking.
I mean,
that's what we all
people
say.
really like to crap on the French. I'll just say.
Yeah, French anything. It's like, fuck, kill it with fire, as my mom would always say.
Kill it with fire. So a very big thank you, a very big Thursday thank you. That's going to be my new thing. Thursday thank you to Xcenu from Sweden, Fratis from Deutschland, Coqui from Puerto Rico, which is kind of American but kind of not, and Gunderson from the strange land of Yorkshire, which I vaguely heard of. It's near the Hebrides, and the evil Queen of America. America. And it is also a good night from me. Happy Saturday, YouTube. Happy Saturday, everyone. And we have now a topic to do with, I don't know how to phrase this. Who should be president of Europe? Stalin or John Major? Well, that's who they look like. So I'm looking at their photo. That's how I'm going to judge it. Actually, is the one who looks like Stalin and the one who looks like John Major. But it's possible that some people may have opinions that go beyond that, and I'll say, well, going in the order of the people I can see. Oh no, I apologise. Because it's Saturday, we have a special rule, and we begin. Fratis, could you introduce this topic, please?
So, as the European Union is changing over the last couple of years, this time, for the first time within the history of the European Union, people will indirectly be allowed to vote for the European Commission President, which is one of the three institutes that leads the European Union. So we will be indirectly voting for two of the three institutions, which will be a real change from where it was till now. For this first presidential election, we've had two very old, very long-time Brussels politicians, which is Juncker, who used to be president of Luxembourg, and Mr. Schulz, who is a German politician, running against each other. I think most people have not heard of either, which is kind of sad in the presidential election, where people were hoping it to become something like the US elections, not like something like we've got.
So people have been focusing too heavily on their own countries.
Basically, the whole idea behind these rule changes was to re-engage it on a European level instead of making about national politics every time, which has kind of failed. But I guess in a way, these two people represent two different thoughts of Europe, and we will indirectly be voting for them. The question really is does anyone even know about them? And I'd really like to hear what people think about this. Do you know about the presidents? Did you know about the election of the presidents? If yes, how have you found the campaign? Has it even been like representative of anything? I just hand it back to Alex, who knows who comes first.
Well, I know about this because you linked it. That's my knowledge. I've seen one of them is definitely the reincarnation of Stalin. One of them is definitely the reincarnation of John Major,
who's still alive.
Yes. Well, the thing is, John Major is the type of Tory. It's kind of like Terminator 2. You can just cut bits off; they'll grow. It does.
Okay.
To be honest, well, why is it that I feel myself inclined towards the one who looks like Stalin?
Because Stalin has an ace mustache, or had, rather.
Exactly. You got to go for the facial hair, people. That's how you vote.
It's well brill.
So, Fratis, the order in which I can see people is Gunderson, Fratis, Queenie, and Coqui. Shall we begin with Gunderson?
Go ahead.
I know next to jack shit about this, to be honest. I only even know about it because Fratis brought it up today. But, so yeah, it's something I'm going to have to read up on in the just under a week to come before the election.
So you hadn't heard about this, the president, the commission presidential elections at all?
Hell no.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
So, I really don't have much of an opinion.
This isn't a thing in the UK because the UK is geared to a good versus evil battle about UKIP, which is it's unfortunate, but it's been necessitated, and a European president is a fascinating idea, but I don't know who these geezers are. I suppose they're two white men, and I'm going to guess are cisgendered and straight. So
they check their privilege.
Go fig. Yeah, that's a go and check privilege. And this ties in with what we were saying earlier, because in a way it would kind of make sense. But well, you said yourself, people don't know what they're voting for, which is. But the thing is, this is a very complicated. Europe is a very complicated machine that barely holds together, and for most people, it's incomprehensible. So
yeah, because unlike in America, you don't have one country that all speaks the same language and has. Well, there are cultural differences between different parts of America, but for all intents and purposes, it's basically one culture compared to several cultures all trying to coordinate with each other. So, it doesn't work nearly as smoothly as America does with its presidential election. Plus, it's an entirely different. It's indirectly voted for, in this case, the president. So, it's no wonder why so few people actually know about this. Because I guess I'm just so used to focusing on British politics that I don't often look at the bigger picture with these things, which is admittedly a mistake on my part.
And mine too, but of course, but the thing is, like with AV, which we discussed yesterday, you're offering people a vote on something that the average person has no knowledge of, doesn't understand. And to be honest, one of the reasons that you get hostility towards European politics is people just don't get it.
But I thought that would actually help, to be honest. When I heard of this changing rule and the idea behind it, I thought it would help. Having one figurehead, one guy who represents Europe, a face to a faceless organization. One guy to stand up there and go, give a speech and say, look, I'm the president of the commission. This is who I am. This is my name. This is the policy I'm going to pursue.
I can see the plus to that, but the minus is by this point, I'm going to look at some political leader, yada yada, and I'm just going to assume he's a cunt. Which admittedly is true of anybody. I mean, literally. It doesn't matter if you're, you know. So those two men might be lovely, but they're politicians, so my brain is automatically saying that they are the biggest cunts in Europe.
I'll give you like a major or a couple of major differences between the two. The EPP, who supports Jean-Claude Juncker, who is, by the way, former Prime Minister of Luxembourg, he has the view that he has been the president for the last, well, not he himself has been the president, but he's worked deeply within the European Union for the last, well since 2005, 2006 somewhere, and has been around for a while. He has the idea of, he dragged back the bloc from the collapse when we nearly collapsed after the financial crash in 2008. But he's also very pro austerity, which a lot of people don't.
Big
like.
problem.
Yeah, big problem for a lot of people. Alienates a lot of voters. On the other side, you have Martin Schulz, who's a German politician. Who has been president of the parliament for a couple of years, now is running for president of the commission. He's very much a democratic person. He likes a lot of democracy and he's been trying to power up the parliament, which he's been very successful over the last couple of years. He's one of the people who actually pushed these rule changes, actually giving the parliament some power and you know, letting people vote more, which is, I personally find very positive, you know, helping Europe get into democracy. On the other end, he has the problems of being very strongly in favor of deep immigration, which make him somewhat unpopular, especially in Great Britain.
Okay. Queenie, what threat do you think a president of Europe would pose to your evil, homosexual, Muslim, communist president? And who would win in a fight?
Well, what's the capacity of the European president? What will his position entail? What will his job be?
Being evil.
Well, in that case, they're just going to have to go fisticuffs with it, because there's no telling.
And, Coqui, your perspective on this?
I'm just thinking about Prime Sinister as an elected office now. Yeah, because you're talking about, like, these evil presidents. I think it's rather tragic that, you know, a position as important as this is, you know, the information's not being put out to the common person. Granted, this whole process is pretty new, and, I mean, it's indirect. The United States has an electoral college, but I suppose it's still not quite the same. But, yeah, it seems as though there's still quite a bit of work to go. I guess that's really all I can say on the matter, you know, in terms of European unity. There's still a long road ahead.
So just to answer one of Queenie's questions, he's basically the head of government for the European Union. The European Commission is basically the institution of the European Union that gets to propose laws, and he's the head of that and gets to decide in which direction that body goes.
So it's just going to be a capacity like the President of the United States does?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
He's basically the guy who gets to decide in what direction the European Union heads, and that's why it's so important, personally, I think.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling you there on how I can see how people wish it was more like an American election.
I don't, because the Electoral College is shit.
Your mom's shit. No, I'm just kidding.
I agree.
I'm sorry, that was terrible.
The thing is, if you do any research, both of these guys, Lenin and John Major,
I thought it was Stalin.
Sorry, Stalin. I apologize. Oh no, I did mean Lenin. I did mean Lenin. Sorry. Wow. No, he's got the beard. He looks like Lenin. Lenin and Major. If you look into their backgrounds, they were both born in Hawaii. They are both homosexual Muslim communists.
And they're both black.
And they're both black. Exactly. You can't trust these people. Alright, in all seriousness, there's always going to be a balance of do you need leadership or where is leadership dangerous. Now, I don't know about these two people, but I'm naturally cynical. At the same time, though, I'll be very honest here. Speaking as a British citizen who is scared, I'm scared of this government. I'm scared of the future. I'm scared of the direction that things are going in. I'll be even more honest. The way things are going, I've actually contemplated suicide because of the way things are going. And I'm not alone. I might actually trust somebody in charge of Europe more. So I guess I'm gonna have to open up the floor on this, and well, I'll start with Gunderson.
About what? Because I joined a bit late.
I suppose what I was talking about was literally looking at this government and what it's doing. Looking at the situation and how it is. And there really wouldn't be anything worse.
I don't agree. I think many things could be far worse.
Well, UKIP would be worse, but potentially we could have a Tory UKIP coalition, so it's a meaningless description. The way people are being treated, the kinds of policies, that child protective services could be privatized. No, I don't think you can get much worse than that.
I agree that it's pretty bad, but I mean, in some ways, yes, we are getting worse. Also, there's a lot of echo of someone.
That might be me, I don't know, hang on. Just talk, I'll mute myself.
Hello? Yep, it's gone now. Okay, no, you said you mute yourself. Yeah, okay, I mean, in some ways, yes, things are getting worse. Especially with, like, as austerity sets in more and more. But I mean, you know, like, I guess I'm thinking in other ways, like, you know, violent crime is on an all-time low, you know, things are generally getting better with LGBT rights and gender equality and stuff like that. So, I mean, I try to look at things overall. So, I don't know, I mean, yes, austerity is a big problem, but I do think, I don't know, I would say generally, not just in the UK, but all over the place, life's, things are generally getting better in most respects. Do you get what I mean?
Okay, how much of that do you think is down to condemn?
Very little, but I think, I agree, mostly what they're doing is bad. These are more, unstoppable forces of social change, really, more than anything.
Right, okay, Fratis?
I think having a figurehead for Europe will help people understand Europe better and also give us something we can stand behind or against. I don't know if it will work well. I think we're still having some teething problems. Like with basically this being our first presidential election, we're still having some problems with the teething of this said election. And that'll get better as we go along. But I think in general it's a good idea to have someone to stand behind. And also to have someone, I hope in the future the presidential elections will become somewhat akin to American presidential elections, where you have two people basically throwing ideas at each other, like saying, I would like to, build more roads or something, I don't know what you would usually do, like, you'd go, I want to build some roads, or I would like to spend more money on schools, or I'd like to push austerity harder or something, and have something like that pushing hard, and also have basically maybe even debates in English. I mean, English would be the language of choice there.
Well, I thought it'd be German.
No, it'd be English. As much as I like to joke about Germany ruling the European Union, but it's not. It'd be English.
It's too complicated. Things are male, things are female, things are neutral. Who can keep track? The more complicated something is, the more can go wrong. I'm not dissing German. I'm just saying.
I'm just dissing German.
Okay, Queenie, your thoughts on a European president and German being way too complicated?
Well, I think you're bound to have hiccups in the beginning, but hopefully it's something that can sort of come together and work out. I mean, being American, I'm all for the democracy for y'all foreigners.
In the Greenlands of not America?
Do what?
In the Greenlands of not America.
Yep.
Vlog brother.
The thing is, though, if you combine certain German things with the current British government, you could have David Cameron and Michael Gove in a gas chamber. And who wouldn't want that?
I agree.
Queenie, your thoughts on... Oh no, did I just ask you?
Yeah, I think you did, and I said, Freedom America! Ooh.
Yes,
Coqui.
I am the one.
Your turn, Coqui.
Coqui doesn't get it.
I would say that a figurehead, maybe pride's not the right word. It would be wrong to say it's the source of pride, but it's certainly a source of identity, even if it's someone you don't like. I mean, think about, like, every American knows who Barack Obama is, love him or hate him. And actually, a good portion of the population outside of America is quite aware of who Barack Obama is. And so, this is sort of what makes America seem easy to consider a polity, to say America wants this, America wants that. You can't really do that with Europe yet. And I do think that, there should be more emphasis placed on the president if we do want to hit an age where we can say, that there is sort of a European way agenda, I guess. And granted, I don't like how we tend to speak of countries as if they were some kind of anthropomorphic entities with desires, but at least, if the end goal is unity, then putting more emphasis on these elections and having this figurehead address the European people In other words, just be more visible in the media would probably help with European unity a lot.
Aha.
And also, Germany does sound like an incredibly complicated and downright ugly language to hear.
No, you didn't.
It's going to kick
I
off here.
actually like... Okay, Gunderson.
To be honest, I think that's one of the misunderstandings people have of the German language. That it's an ugly, terrible language when, I think most languages sound foreign to when you never talked of or heard the language or speak it yourself. German, I think, can be a rather pretty language and rather adept one too. If you just think of all the philosophers who wrote in German, or all the musicians who also, their texts are in German.
I completely agree. I would actually say that while I don't understand the lyrics to Beethoven's Ninth, I enjoy them. Of course, Friedrich Nietzsche, very unfairly demonized poet, is how I would characterize him. I think there are reasons why people are scared by the German language.
I do reckon it does sound quite clangy, especially since they have a lot of... I think it's a suffix, correct me if I'm wrong, Fratis, that having en at the end of a word is a suffix.
It's not really a suffix, it's just technically I guess it's a suffix.
I want to say things like, when I saw, how there were those Christian preachers. If you see footage of a Christian street preacher and it's in German, it's that bit more frightening. But I think that is... But I grew up with these grainy images of Hitler, who, to be fair, died 30-something years before I was born. And I can now tell you, because actually, yes, I think it's 33? As a 33-year-old, 33 is quite a long time, and we could get over this. And no, I think German can be a very beautiful, very poetic language. It's true. Somebody on Channel 4 a few years ago remarked that the British have a love of pronouncing things the French way, but we don't do the same with German. And there's this idea that it's almost like to speak German, you're shouting. Which is actually a mistake. Now, when I went to school, I studied French, Spanish, and German. I was shit at all of them. But at the same time, I felt demoralized. Because if I go to a cafe and I say, Ich möchte einen Kaffee bitte, maybe I've said that really... Actually, Fratis, how good or bad
it was
is
okay.
that? Okay, so I would get my coffee.
Yes, most likely you would.
There you go. But this is always the thing. I always think we're discouraged in the UK by language teachers. My German teacher actually was a native German. And it's like, you got the pronunciation a bit wrong. And I just think the British have a reputation for being so bad at learning other languages, when really just encourage us a bit more. Don't call us up. Don't demoralize us every time we don't quite pronounce it right. But I won't agree. I actually, the national anthem, the theme tune of Europe being Beethoven's Ninth, Ode to Joy. I do actually love that tune, and I would
still recording?
say we are still recording. I would say I think that's one of the best pieces of music ever. So I don't genuinely resent the fact that it's German. I would say no. I think Beethoven was great, and I love that sort of tune, and And if we're to be objective here, let's remember, one of the biggest sacrifices of World War II was Coventry. And yes, that is a people decimated. When they rebuilt that church, remember what they had inscribed on it. If you go, sorry, to the the church, cathedral of of a totally rebuilt city, what it actually says on it is, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Okay, so I'll go around the group again. Fratis?
Hello. I'm going to say good night for everyone. Have a good weekend, and I hope you voted or are voting. And I hope the turnout's great, and we'll see what the future brings us, I guess.
Okay. Gunderson?
I don't know, what are we even talking about at this point?
We may have lost the plot slightly.
I reckon so.
Let's discuss the possibility of Voteman becoming the president of the European Union.
It's
Was that what his name was? The Danish cartoon?
It'd be like Duke Nukem.
Exactly.
That's who he made me think of immediately.
What? What is this?
Don't you know who Duke Nukem is?
No?
Video game character, irrelevant. But yeah, President of Europe, very relevant.
Okay, and Queenie?
Well, it's nice to see some progress if that's what this is, and everybody, I guess, vote.
We will, Queenie. Those of us, and indeed. All right then. Okay.
Good night, everybody.
And a good night from Fratis.
I think
good night, everyone.
Off. Oh no, he's still here.
And a good night from Queenie.
Good night.
Perfect soprano. And good night from Coqui.
Voteman wishes you well.
Absolutely. And nobody insulted London.
We all forgot.
May London burn.
Your mom's London.
I hope London becomes the new Hiroshima.
Dark. That's dark. Really, really dark.
Wow.
Oh, I've said worse things along that subject before.
Well, as I burn to death and my neighbours and their children melt, and become scarred, charred remains of their future selves, and everybody in London for future generations is born mutated with cancer, and yeah, okay, it's been a hell of a week, and good night YouTube, good night everyone.